And then I said, that's not my meeple, that's my wife. Hello and welcome to episode 242 of the Board Game BBQ podcast, proudly brought to you by Adrian Games and, of course, our Patreons. They make it happen each and every week. This is Dan. I'll be your host for tonight, but I'm not alone. As always, I'm joined by, we've got the whole East Coast covered. First of all, up in Brisbane, it's Adrian. How are you, Adi?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm very good. We had the East Coast covered last time as well. So
we did too. And we're joined. He's back on board after packing up and moving out of Victoria and into the New South Wales. It's Jules.
Hey, how's it going?
You're still settled in Sydney now?
Somewhat. It feels good to be back. I've missed doing this, and it feels like it's been a long time. It's just been a journey, but we're here now.
Yeah, great stuff. The long trek down the Hume Highway, up the Hume Highway, I should say.
Yeah, that's it.
And settled in Sydney, great stuff. Well,
did you drive the truck, or was
no.
it removalists?
No, did removalists, but I drove a carload of stuff when I came here, and then flew back to do packing, and then flew back to receive it on the other end.
There was lots of, like, you at airports talking to me on your phone.
Yes, a lot.
I hope this is the last move for you for a while, because moving is I suppose I don't need to tell you, it's a nightmare. I wouldn't wish it on my first enemy.
I was thinking earlier today, the podcast has been running for nearly 3 years now. We're coming up very close on our third anniversary.
I think it's 10 days' time.
I think it is, yes.
Yeah.
And in those 3 years, I have lived in 3 different states. I started the podcast in the ACT, then went to Victoria, and now I'm in New South Wales. That's mental.
If you keep going counterclockwise round, you just go to Queensland, then Northern Territory, then you can go to WA,
I'm gonna do
then
the
South
circuit.
Australia, and then down to Tassie last.
Yeah, and just
in the next 10 years, I'll just do the circuit.
You can join the Dice Men.
That's it.
And muscle in on their territory. So now I'm the grey one. I'm supposed to be the grey nomad, but you're the one that's doing the Leyland brothers and travelling all over the countryside.
Yeah, they don't know who the brothers are, but that sounds cool.
Oh, the Leyland brothers. Oh, there's a reference for the oldies.
I think they're the ones that invented the biplane or something, weren't they?
No, they're the White brothers. they live just behind me.
Oh, okay.
Right up. All right, we're back with another episode. We're going to talk about just what we've been up to during the last week with some games. I'm looking forward to hearing what Jules has been up to, because it's been a while. We'll have some sizzles for everyone. We've got at last week's question of the pod, which we got a massive response for, which was all about what keeps people engaged in board games. And then, of course, we'll finish the show with the question of the pod. But Jules, I'm going to throw the floor open to you, my friend. Besides packing and unpacking boxes, have you managed to get any games to the table?
Here and there, yes. Not as much as I thought I would, because the move has been quite an endeavor. But I have had time here and there to unwind and just enjoy a couple of games here and there. One of the games recently that I haven't played for quite a while is Pax Pamir. And my love for that game has not waned at all. I thoroughly enjoyed the game I played. It was so tense. And I can see again and again why it sits in my top 10 right up there. It's something that it's just one of those games that just clicks. I don't know how else to describe it, but it just clicks with you. And I really enjoy that one. Yeah. I've also, Mitch has talked about a couple of games that I've tried, because I spent a bit of time at Mitch's place over the Sydney game day just gone, as well as while I was looking for a place, they graciously, the Keddy family let me stay there for a little while. And I played a bit of the Isofarian Guard, which Mitch has gone ad nauseum about.
Yeah, no, he's waxed, but I'm interested in your opinion of it too, because he's waxed lyrical about it. He absolutely loves it. But what's your take on it? Obviously, I'm assuming you enjoyed it just as much.
Yeah, well, Jules, I'm going to say, you said, this is the best game I've played this year. Now, have you calmed down a little bit and come back to reality?
Okay, so I will clarify that I have played the game once. It was 1 8-hour session.
Right.
So that speaks to how much I've enjoyed the game. We just wanted to sort of keep going and exploring. As Mitch has been talking about it further on the podcast, I start to realize more how little I scratched the surface of the game. And I could start to see that towards that first play, that as we were sort of wrapping up, I have listened to Mitch's concerns about the grind in the game, and that would be my number one gripe. It's just a bit too much, I think. And that was one of my problems with Gloomhaven, was the pacing of the leveling up. It didn't feel like you're getting anywhere at a good pace. It kind of felt like you have to defeat 5 dungeons before you get one little upgrade or something like that. I don't know exactly the pacing, but I guess the cool thing about the Isofarian Guard over Gloomhaven, and I don't know really why I'm comparing these two, but it just feels like a good fit to do that, is that it's that sandbox element that you can kind of go anywhere and you can do things other than just missions to kill stuff. It feels more like you're, having wild encounters with things rather than in Gloomhaven, it's like, oh, we need to go there and go into this dungeon and kill things. Yes, there are the road events, but Isofarian Guard has those road events and other stuff you can engage with. So, yeah, I think it's a great game. It's certainly not one I would look to purchase and play solo or anything, but I would happily play it if someone wanted to have a campaign and have at it. Yeah. Like, at least I'd give it a go. I'd want to see faster progression as we get through it, though. So that's where I sit.
Isn't that a trope of like role playing, like Dungeons and Dragons, or even just video games, where you might get 1,000 experience and level up, but then the difference between leveling up to the next level is not 1,000. It's exponentially more and more. Although I suppose it's balanced by you actually probably defeating or bigger creatures or doing different quests. Because I remember when we were doing the Dungeons and Dragons campaign, where Mitch was DMing, and we defeated this sort of monster at the end, and he went, "Okay, you level up," and then as we continue playing, we defeated another monster in our next session, and we were expecting to level up again. And he's like, "No, you don't always level up just because you defeat a monster. It's obviously the steps are greater in between each." So, I mean, with that in mind, do you think that it should be more balanced? Every 8 hours feels like it's justified because the reward at the end is an increase or a level or more gear or whatever.
Yeah, it's hard to put. It's hard to quantify it, really, because, I start to think of, some video games like World of Warcraft. If I spent 8 hours on there, I might have heaps of gold and I've mined a bunch of stuff and I was able to go craft this and that. Whereas I didn't upgrade a single piece of gear in that 8 hours. Granted, we're learning the game and doing the tutorial, but it felt slow to begin with. Maybe it ramps up.
Back to World of Warcraft, I was thinking about World of Warcraft when Mitch was talking, and especially this conversation sort of sparks my insight of that game. And the first character I ever played and created took me hours and hours and hours, and doing the first dungeons and doing the Wailing Caverns and things like that was next to impossible in a group of 5, and it was a nightmare and took hours to grind that. Whereas on my 4th and 5th character, you just binge through it. It's not even difficult.
Yeah.
You can just, you know where you're going, you know what's going to get you the most XP. So I wonder on a second playthrough if you can have a different experience and go faster and do things more compressively. Because in the only campaign game that I currently play, which is the KDM, this is my third time round playing this campaign. We are way better, way more efficient.
Yeah,
have more knowledge of what works, what doesn't work.
That's a good comparison to bring up. Kingdom Death. I feel
we're going to get you guys with that ADM coming up.
That's it. Well, in Kingdom Death, each session you play, your character's going to evolve somehow. Whether they get, more
positive or negatives.
Exactly, positive or negative. They're going to walk away having changed. That's almost a guarantee. Or at least have the ability to, craft some gear straight away and you've got something. And that session might take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to play. Whereas the Isofarian Guard, like I said, I played 8 hours and didn't upgrade a single piece of gear because we didn't have enough to. Granted, maybe we spent our resources doing something else, and I won't spoil what that is too much. But I guess that's part of the experimentation of the game and playing it out. But overall, I really enjoyed, playing that game and would happily, dive back in. But I wouldn't go looking for a copy, if that's a way to sum it up.
Do you think you could play it solo? Like, I know that you're playing it dual, but can you get any experience out of it playing as a person on their own?
I'm not a massive solo player, and even then, I don't think I would enjoy it solo, to be honest. I enjoyed the strategizing with the other player and who's going to go.
Even though that other player was Mitch.
He did beat me to it. I was going to say the same thing.
Wow. Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's just communicating, going, hey, how about I attack first because I'll be able to do this, and then that will put a bonus chip in your bag. You might pull it out in your turn. There's a great element to that, and you lose that communication solo, obviously. But that part of it I quite enjoyed.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah, so in terms of other games, he already sizzled Solani, which I really, really enjoyed, and I'm keen to play that again. And I went to Sarah's place and played a bunch of card and a lot of trick-taking games. That was a bunch of fun as well. And they were all brand new to me. Not all of them were trick-taking, but a lot of them were ladder climbing or, games of that ilk.
Yeah.
How do I pronounce this one? Velenimo? It was like a cycling game.
Oh, I've seen that one. I remember seeing a YouTube video of that last year. I made a note of it.
I think it's published by 25th Century Games. It's beautiful artwork, and it was really quite fun, that one. I played Ghosts of Christmas. That was a fantastic trick-taking game.
Really?
Really enjoyed that. It's playing... Sarah talked about it again on the podcast recently, where you're playing 3 tricks at once, past, present, and future. And whoever wins the past, whatever card they played that won that determines the trump suit for the next one, which is the present. Very, very clever. It makes your head spin quite a bit as well, which I really enjoyed. And what was the other one we played? It was called Mon Emblems of Sengoku. That was just it was just numbers on cards, but it was sort of, it reminded me in a bit of what's the game? Six Nipped.
Oh, yeah.
So you sort of have rows of numbers, and there's sequencing of, you're trying to get, the top card on piles, and you have to play them in order. So it sort of reminded me of Six Nipped in a way, because you've got multiple rows of numbers going in sequential orders. Really, really good, that one as well. So that's a bit of a synopsis of what I've been playing here and there for the past few weeks. Yeah.
And getting around seeing the crew
Considering
as well.
you're moving house and stuff, like that's plenty of games.
I guess most of those games were binged in 2 days over the past 6 weeks. I haven't done much
game
gaming
days
other than that.
Best way to digest them.
Yeah.
Now, Adi, you and I were on the show last week, but have you managed to get anything to the table since we were on last week?
Yeah, I had a game day at my house actually yesterday, and
Nice.
it was all set up specifically to there's a guy who comes to the game days. His name's Daniel, awesome dude, and I always get to see him at the game days, but we never actually get to play any games together. And he likes splatter games and some of these heavier games, and at the game day, it's just not feasible for me to sit down for like 4 hours and play one of these. It's just it just doesn't happen, and I'd love to do it, but I'm needed elsewhere doing things. But I actually managed to have him come round and some other friends come round, and we got to play Horseless Carriage again. So it's my second play of this game.
Oh,
and I know Sarah spoke about this recently as well, but I won't sizzle it this week, but it is definitely my favorite spotter game.
Really?
After playing it.
Have you played Bus?
Time. Yeah, I played Bus.
Okay.
Bus is good, but it's too short. Like, it's a good little game. It's not a mammoth beast of like a 4-hour, car building marketing strategy.
It's a totally different game.
Completely different. Yeah. So, it can't really be compared in the same light. But yeah, Horseless Carriage, I went in still not really understanding what I was doing because it's got that much depth to it. But as we started to build our workshops for our car production and stuff, I could see mistakes that I was making as I was doing it, which is normal for a spotter game to a degree. That's going to happen. But I also had learned a lot from my previous play, so I knew some certain things that I could do to sort of manipulate my my position in the game. And it was just great. It's a fantastic game. It's really interesting, and every element to the game is interesting, right? You have the build phase where you're building your workshop, and that's allowing you to basically produce better cars and give you access to different parts of the market on the board. And then those are also, the market demand is split up by the fact that you have these kind of things that go to the left and right of the board, and there's like design, safety, range. I can't remember the other ones. Not efficiency. Another thing to do with a car. Another car category. Anyway,
wiper fluid.
Yeah, wiper fluid. You don't get that in it. I mean, to be honest, you can build cars without steering wheels, so it's not super thematic in that sense. But yeah, those demands come out on the board, and depending on how far you push your own token on those tracks and other players' tokens on that tracks is what demand comes back into the game for the next round. So that demand is linked to what's on your board's main line and what you can actually produce in the factories. So it's really important that you keep an eye on what's coming in next round, because potentially you might not meet the minimum requirements to even sell any cars. And that's a very terrifying fact when that starts to happen, because you're like, oh no. And I was really close to just going, you know what, I'm going to push it and try and push everyone's, because I had 5 design parts to my factory. So I was able to push 5 markers up. Now you can only push your own marker up in one category each time, but essentially I could push my marker up and then the other 3 players' markers up, forcing a different category to come into the game and screw people over because they didn't meet the demands for other things. Now, I was very close to doing it, but unfortunately I wanted to put range in. Ben wanted to put safety in, and there was no way, if we didn't work together to make it happen, it just wasn't going to happen. So I just stuck with design and kept that one coming back through and cycling back through. It did bring up some interesting things in the fact that I found that in my previous game, we almost circled through the same 3 technologies quite a lot, right? We didn't really introduce the other ones as much. In a 4-player game, that was even that was highlighted even more. There was the same 3 techs circling through the game, which, wasn't a problem. But I think in a 5-player game, you could really change that and manipulate that so that you're just pushing people out so they can't sell anything. And that would be great. So I've already arranged it and said, like, hey, we need to play this 5-player. I really want to try it. So we're gonna try that at some point.
Nice.
But it's a fantastic game. It's super interesting. And as we were doing the final sales, man, it was interesting. It was so good. Like, you have these little weird sort of frames that you place down on the board that are a plastic color, and depending on how much marketing is attached to your dealership is how big that frame is. So it can be a 1x2 rectangle, a 2x2 square, or a 3x3 square. And I was able to get my 3x3 square out by having 2 marketing places connected to a particular dealership. And when it comes to the sale round, that's really interesting because if you're first in engineering, which means you have access to more technologies, but then you're last in the sales area, you get to sell first when it comes to the sales round. So when you're doing the engineering part of the game, you don't have access to as much, but when you're selling stuff, you get to go first, which was great because I got the 5 design pieces early, I was able to keep up on technology by myself, and I wasn't relying on other players' stuff to piggyback on.
Yep.
So I was last quite a lot and happy with that because I was able to sell first. And yeah, that becomes really interesting because I had 2 dealerships. So imagine 2 grids that I get to place out on the board.
Oh, interesting.
On my first turn, I placed out my largest one and took the most amount of cars that I could from one space that you can. And then it came back round to me and there were still good cars in that zone for a good price. So I just kept plucking ones out, like a one out, then another one.
Yep.
And I just waited until I could see the board state more because other people had sold other cars. And then I could decide, right, where is it best for this other grid to go? It's going to maximize my sales. And yeah, it came down to a tie at the final between me and Dan, and I won on the tiebreaker, which was to be like closer to the sales end of the game than it is to be more sales focused than engineering focused.
Right.
And that's what broke the tie.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was that same kind of moment that I had when I played that 18xx game with Def, and it was all exciting, and it was like, oh, I'm going to get 3 for that, and then he got 9 for this, and then I got 12 for mine, and it was like adding it up and seeing the 2 markers move next to each other. It was just, it just had that big like crescendo at the end, and
that's cool.
It was fantastic. So yeah, it's a great game. Sorry, I basically sizzled it, but I didn't mean to. But like, it's just really good, but it still has that problem. Like, I really wanted to buy it. When I finished, I was pacing around my lounge room, like, oh man, I just want to buy that thing, man. Like, I really want to buy that game. I know I pre-ordered it somewhere, and I should really get it, but I don't see it getting played without a regular group to play it and getting that kind of depth. And we still played with the basic cars and the basic setup where you're just selling one type of car. There's a different version where you're selling sports cars and I think trucks as well. So you have to have different main lines inside your factory that can meet the demands of different areas. So it has a whole new level to it that we haven't even tried. But yeah, it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. But for me, I just don't see me getting it because of that 3-player issue.
Yeah.
And it might just be a weird thing of like, I see the dollar per play value in a lot of games, right? So when it's a 2-player game and MJ and I can play it 5, 6, 7 times back to back on a weekend and just binge something and then really enjoy it, I see good value in that. But if I'm going to get to play that game once every 3 or 4 months with a group of friends that, that I don't get to see as regularly, is there that same value in it? So for me, it's a hard sort of thing to weigh up.
What about Food Chain Magnate? Does that have a large player count as well, or can you play that at 2?
You can play it at 2. It does go to 2, and it plays fine at 2. We've had great games with it at 2. It does go up to 5, but it also is almost half the price. Like, you can get it for $150, right? At the moment, Horseless Carriage is not at that level. It's still an expensive game for what it is. And it's mechanically phenomenal, right? The garage thing, the workshop part is like Pipeline, but worse.
I love that.
Which is better, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's really difficult to fit these things in and make it really efficient.
I really want to try the game.
Yeah, I think you would like it. But the thing
luckily,
is,
Sarah's got it.
I think you'd like Food Chain Magnate more because you can be more cutthroat in it. Like, someone taking 1 or 2 of your cars isn't like too bad, but when someone destroys your entire marketing strategy in Food Chain Magnate and takes everything you have, you're just like, you're literally crippled and left like with your mouth open like a Muppet, like one of the Muppets when they're like, you just got no idea what's going on. But yeah, that's also, they're both great, but I love that personal puzzle in Horseless Carriage. It's an absolute next level, like top tier game because of that. So yeah. But then we went on and played Pipeline straight off the back of it because
it's stamina.
Ben hadn't played it and Daniel hadn't played it, so we played it and we played it with the expansion. We just went all in.
Nice!
It was so fun. It was really good. That was also just really nice to show people a game that I really love and get to enjoy playing quite a lot, which is awesome. And then we went and played Scout, which was my copy, which was still in shrink, which was weird because it had been played at my house before, but it was other people's copies. So it's just the way it happened. But that's a great game, and I actually think that Finn might quite enjoy that game. So I think I might try and introduce that to him.
Yeah, I picked up a copy recently myself.
Yeah, I actually played it with my in-laws not long ago, and they were able to pick it up quite easily. And even I can't remember when it was. It must have been when I was flying back to Melbourne and packing things. Like, do you have that game with you? I'm like, no, it's packed away. Sorry. I'm like, I was like, wow, they actually asked to play that again.
That's awesome. When they ask to play something, it's it's a hit. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was cool.
And then we also played Galaxy Superstar because I love that game and you can play it so quick. And Ben was the one that introduced it to me and he was there. So it was just a win-win to play that with him again. And then we played High Society, which was one of the... I was talking to them afterwards when we finished and I was like, that game never ever has like a dull game. There's always laughs. There's always back chatting and, giving each other grief, but also just hilarious moments. And I mean, I kept hold of my wand for so long in that game. And the best bit about it was when like someone would go 10 and I'd just go 11.
Yes.
And like being able to creep that one in all the
Yes.
time. And I would also pass and I got to keep the one. So I kept getting to pump it up by just ones and annoying everybody with that, which was great because Matt was on my left. Matt Woods was on my left. So I got to, see his reaction of like, I can't let him have it for just one extra that he just bid for it. So I have to bid. But yeah, it was fantastic. The game is just, it's just a genius design. And yeah, Ben did the thing that I often do as well, where you just go hard at the start, but then the one that half your score or delete your cards start going out, and you don't want to take those, so you're bidding as well. Yeah. And then you also realize, hang on, I've only got 2 cards. Like I know that I can't win now. Because in that game, for those who don't know, High Society is a bidding game where you're bidding on different cards to win them that are worth different victory points. But there's also ones that double your score, half your score. They also delete other cards from the game. So the ones you've just won also get deleted. But the kicker is that you cannot win if you spend the most money. And Ben, it was very apparent about 2/3 of the way through the game, Ben had spent the most money. So we could just like sit back a little bit and have a little bit more freedom because we knew potentially we can't lose as long as we didn't go over a certain amount, which we were kind of trying to figure out what he had. And it was just hilarious fun at that point then because it just turned to chaos. So yeah.
I love that game.
Yeah, definitely a great game.
Good times. Well, I've only played one game since last week, and that'll be my sizzle, so I'll save that for a moment. But I've been knee-deep in our Board Game BBQ Awards, funnily enough. So last time we were on the show, we were saying that the nominees had just closed, and as we record this tonight, our Patreons are still voting on the winners. But I thought I'd share with you all who the nominees are, who the official nominees are for each of the categories. So you'll recall we got 8 categories, and I thought I'd share it with you guys and get your thoughts on, firstly, best solo game. So the nominees for best solo game this year, or best game for 2022, were Burn Cycle, Turing Machine, Resist, Paperback Adventures, Three Sisters, and ISS Vanguard. Any thoughts on those? There's just some very, very different games, some specific solo games, but also some big, heavy games that our community loves to play solo.
Yeah, my vote automatically goes to Resist. That game was so simple, so much tension, so genius, like hands down. That is where my vote goes. Unfortunately, it wasn't a massive Kickstarter, so I don't think a lot of people got their hands on it. Mm-hmm. That will be potentially its downfall, but that's where my vote is. Resist, by far the best.
Adrian, have you played any of those solo?
No, like I haven't, and I know that like if I don't say I should, vote for Burn Cycle, Death might kill me in my sleep. But I really respect Turing Machine as a concept. So like, even though I haven't played it solo, as a concept, I think it's genius. I even like that they give the nod to Alan Turing and call it that. 100%. Yeah, I think it's very, even though we spoke about it recently on the pod, like, just because it has 15 billion, trillion, zillion combinations or whatever the number is, probably 5 million or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean it's replayable to that degree. Mm-hmm. And Mitch was talking about that, and I haven't played it enough to see that, but yeah, just the concept, the idea behind it, I think was great. So.
Yeah, and particularly how it's designed as a cooperative game or as a competitive game, but a lot of people have gravitated towards just playing it solo. It's kind of like doing a Sudoku or some other sort of logic puzzle.
I can see the appeal of that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, best party game. The nominees for best party game of 2022 were Longshot, the dice game, Ready Steady Bet, so 2 horse racing games in there, as well as Feed the Kraken, which looks like a lot of fun, and Gimme That. Now, Gimme That I saw firsthand because Mike taught that at PAX.
Yeah.
And we had a whole bunch of people in there playing, including Thinkathema as well, and that was insane, that game.
It is pretty wild. Yeah. Who knew how much fun you could have crossing off 100 potatoes on a piece of sheet?
Yeah, that's it. And then just stealing the pencil from from one person and taking it and then having a go. And then when suddenly the dice rolls and the scorecards actually rotate. So you may not have filled much out, and suddenly now the scorecard in front of you is almost finished.
Yes.
And you just need that pencil to finish off the last one. That's insane. So we'll see what happens there. Best light game. The nominees for best light game are Seize Rome in 20 minutes, which I played against Jules a couple of times. Cat in the Box Deluxe Edition, My Shelfie, Splendor Jewel, and also Foundations of Rome. So
Caesar for me has got my vote. But again, hard to actually get your hands on. Supply in Australia is not fantastic, but if that doesn't win, my next one would be Splendid Duel. That would be where my vote goes.
Have either of you played Foundations of Rome? So I know there's a few people in our community that love it.
I haven't had a chance yet, no.
No, I haven't played it. I know I'm a total noob, and I probably shouldn't be on a board gaming podcast. But is Foundations of Rome the one with all the bits in it, like the cities?
Yes, the big box. Yes.
Wow, that thing's a light game.
It is a light game.
Have painted all those buildings as well.
Manny.
Phenomenal.
You've seen Manny's ones. They're insane. They put Jules to shame. Welcome back, Jules. You've been away for so long. But my shelfie would actually get my vote because I played it. I really enjoyed the plays of it. I really want to try Splendid Jewel because Jules spoke about it, and it really interests me as one of those other ones where they've taken a game that's already pretty solid and they've put a more gamey kind of a harder twist on it, something that's a bit more mechanically different.
Yes.
And tighter as well, isn't it?
Yes.
It was pretty cutthroat.
It is, yeah.
It's awesome. So stepping up the level of the weight, we're talking best medium weight game of 2022, Carnegie, Dead Reckoning, Endless Winter, Paleo Americans, Libertalia, Wings of Galecrest, and Planet Unknown. We've got a big mix in there. We've got Pirates, we've got Paleo Americans. We've got 2 pirate games, Carnegie, and a game with a lazy Susan in the middle of the table.
Looking at this list, I've only played Libertalia, Winds of Galecrest. And as I've seen the nominations for things come through, I realized, man, I either play light games or heavy games and not much in between. I'm just not a midway
when it comes to Mitch, there's not much in between.
It's one of these funny things. I don't know what it is. I gravitate towards the extremes of the hobby rather than in the middle.
I've played Carnegie and I've played Endless Winter. I haven't played the others, but from what I've been told, Dead Reckoning is fantastic. And a friend of mine, G-Money, loves it. He says it's a really good game, and he's taught at game days and stuff before. And I'd like to give it a go. I like Carnegie. I think it's good, but I don't know. It just
has a limited shelf life.
For me, it did. And I haven't played it in a long time. And I have just picked it back up again on BGA to play.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's incredible how terrible my brain works because I'm looking at it going, I don't know what I'm doing. I played this game like 10 times and I got no idea what I'm doing. I'm just clicking buttons, trying to figure it out as I go.
Funny you say that because I'm in a game of Barrage at the moment on BGA with you, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So.
And that's the funniest thing about that, Dad, is I don't know what I'm doing on that game either because we've got it on like the starter setup. There's no technologies. There's question marks for buildings and stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, I have to like completely think about this in a different way now. But yeah.
So you're saying I'm a chance then? All right.
You've got a chance because I don't know what's going on.
I'll load up Board Game Arena. And then in the heavy category, we've got Weather Machine, Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, The Smoky Valley. I remember Sarah sizzling that almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And John Company, second edition. So it's really tight. It was really tight at the top. We actually had there was a lot of heavy games nominated, but those were the clear sort of top 4 from our community, so they became the official nominees. So out of those, Jules,
John Company, Company for sure, absolutely one of the best games I've played in a long time.
Boo, boo, hiss. Weather Machine's where it's at, yo.
Well, we will see. Best artwork.
Actually, I would like to try John Company because it's one of those. Good. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't belong here, but I want to try it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't really belong in this game, but I want to give it a go. Comes from in the deep end. Yeah.
Best artwork, the nominees are Wonderland's War, Endless Winter, Paleo Americans, Weather Machine, Merchants of the Dark Road, and Flamecraft. So there's some really good ones there.
They're all amazing.
They
very
are.
different
And
looking.
Wonderland's War and Flamecraft are very unique. In their the different art styles. So it's really good to see them there. Endless Winter is that's at the Micho?
Yeah, and that's my favorite of his. Like,
really.
Yeah, some of those cards are really good, and the faces of the people really tell their story and their character.
Yeah,
and I as soon as I started looking, because I'm like Mitch as well, I don't really look at my Kickstarters in too much detail. I go through a bit of a brief of it. Do I like it enough to back it? Yeah, let's go for it, back it. And when it arrives, it's a nice surprise. But you're going through those cards and some of the sculpts and stuff in that game, they're really good. But I mean, the Weather Machine is inspired by like some of my favorite,
it's got like a steampunky kind of feel to it, doesn't it? So, fun fact is we've had the Mito on the show before, where the machine is a friend of the show, Ian O'Toole, and Merge of the Dark Road is friend of the show, Andrew Bosley. So
there you go.
We've had 3 out of those 5 artists on the show, which is great. Best expansion. Interestingly, there were 2 Dune Imperium expansions last year, and both got nominated: Dune Imperium Immortality and Dune Imperium Rise of Ix, neither of which I played. Meadow Downstream was nominated as best expansion, and also 2 Stonemaier games: Viticulture World and Wingspan Asia. Have either of you played the expansions? Either of the expansions to Dune Imperium?
I have.
I've only played one of them.
Okay, which one?
I think it was the Rise of Ix one.
Right.
Immortality is the latest, so I haven't played that one.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think I've played the one that's not the latest one.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what it is, but it's I really enjoyed Dune Imperium. I thought it was a great game. I thought
it is good. Yeah.
That's one I actually haven't got to the table. I had it here as part of our library, and I just never got it to the table. But I've sizzled both Meadow Downstream and Viticulture World in the last year as well, and I enjoyed both of them for different reasons. So it'd be interesting to see which one gets the gong there. And our nominees for Game of the Year for 2022 are John Company 2nd Edition, Endless Winter Paleo-Americans, Dead Reckoning, Carnegie, Foundations of Rome, and Planet Unknown. So we had 6 nominations that were clear above everyone else. And interestingly, 1 heavy game, 1 light game, and 4 medium games. So there's a good spread of games that were nominated for Game of the Year. It'd be interesting to see which one the Patreons vote for. Have you got a favourite?
John Company. Easy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I still want Adnan's version of John Company to be a thing. I would play that over real John Company.
What is this? What is this version?
I can't remember, but it was like, I'll have to look it up and get back to you on it. I'll look it in the Discord and I'll tell you by the end. But it's pretty funny. We did read it out.
I would love to see Foundations of Rome get this, just to see a light game actually take out Game of the Year, because the last couple of years, so the first year we did this, the first annual Board Game BBQ Awards, the winners it was tied. It was On Mars and
Jaws the Lion.
And Jaws the Lion, that's right.
That's
and
right.
Last year, Game of the Year went to Ark Nova. So it'll be nice to see if a light game or even a medium weight game win it this year. But it's not up to us, it's up to our Patreons, and they are voting as we speak. So we will be filming, announcing the awards, announcing the winners live at our 3 game days that are coming up in June. And then we'll package it all together and we'll release it as the third annual Board Game BBQ Awards at the end of June. So stay tuned for that. It'll be a lot of fun. So if you're attending one of our game days, which we'll give you all the details on that later, but our Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney game days are all coming up in June. So if you're attending one of those, you'll see us actually revealing some of the winners live in front of a studio audience. All right, let's get to our sizzles. And Jules, what sizzle are you bringing to the barbecue this week?
I am bringing politics to the barbecue. So in the past month or so, I had the pleasure of trying a game. It's not new at all. In fact, I can't even think when this was. It is an old game. It's been republished once, and the newest edition was done by Pandasaurus Games, and that's called Tammany Hall. And it doesn't look like much from the box, but this is one of the best games I've played in the past year. Funnily enough, this I probably would say it leans into the light category more than medium, but it's hard to say. It probably is that light medium sort of weight.
It was published in 2007, and officially the weight rating is 2.78. That's the official.
So it's on the cusp of the medium and light.
It's light adjacent.
Yeah, light adjacent. Let's go with that.
Which is basically medium.
As you were. That's just medium.
So in Tammany Hall, what you're doing is you're vying to win elections in districts. So this Tammany Hall, oh man, I'm terrible with geography. I believe this is it's in the States,
New York.
I'm sure. New York, that's it. I was thinking Boston, and I'm like, no, it's not Boston. Yeah, so New York. And you're trying to win votes in different districts to get victory points. And you play the game over 16 rounds, and those 16 rounds are broken up into election cycles, which are 4. So essentially, you've got 4 election cycles. And all you're doing on your turn is a combination of either putting out a meeple in an area, which will sort of be doing campaigning for you and will earn you 1 power towards that, that vote, or you can put out a meeple in one location, or you can put out 2 meeples and separate them in different locations. If you put out 2, that's all you do. But if you do 1, you also get to house an immigrant. And there'll be some tokens on the board to choose from, and you put those immigrants in the locations on the board as well. And when you do that, you gain favor of that immigrant group that you can use to spend to get political votes when the election comes around. That is the crux of the game. You're just putting out meeples and potentially housing immigrants to earn favors, which you can spend in the elections. The game is really tight. So when an election comes around, each meeple you have there is worth 1 vote. And whatever immigrants are there, if you have favor tokens matching them, you are allowed to use them. It doesn't matter how many immigrants are there. As long as they're present, you can use any vote favor tokens that you have. And it's a blind auction. So this is where the game gets really tense. And there's a certain order in which all of the electorates are resolved. So you might look at your hand and go, okay, I've got 5 Italian favors I can use. And I can use it in this election for this district. But I also have another 3 districts with Italians present where I could be using them. Do I go heavy now, or do I save them and spread them across all the districts, or hold them for later? So there's lots of that decision making going on, and the board grows as the game goes on. You don't start using the whole area straight away. It stages itself over the course of the game. There's not really much else to explain in the rules other than whoever earns the most votes in an election cycle will become the mayor. The mayor has absolutely no powers. All they get is a bonus 3 victory points. But they have to hand power cards to every other player, and that does give them an advantage. And I found the tension in the game really great. So, for example, some of the powers are, there was like a policeman who could kick immigrants out of an area. There was one that could shift them to an adjacent zone, and therefore disrupting the balance of what favor tokens can be spent when those districts come up for resolving their votes. It's a very cutthroat game, and it's one of those games where you want to chase the leader, but everyone wants to be on top. So you're kind of having to do a bit of negotiation, saying, okay, if you put a meeple in there, I'll make sure I move that token out so they can't use their vote tokens when that election cycle comes around. And the game comes alive. And I've had a blast playing it.
I have an incredible photo of Jules and Joe like plotting out, because I got a hold on this game early, and they went in a panic. And I got a photo of them like really trying to work together to screw me out. And if you don't want, these are probably the 2 worst people in my board gaming like diary I don't want against me when I'm a front runner, because they will figure it out. And it was really good. They're just, both of them are like, yeah, if I take that bit, and we move that there, and we grab this, then he can't do that. And then this is for you, and I'm going to take that bit. And I was like, oh no. Yeah. But it was a great game. Like I really enjoyed it as well. And I'd love to get it, actually. I definitely think this will be a game that I'll see in my collection at some point.
I haven't bought a board game for a long time. This is the next game I'll be buying, hands down. It is amazing. One of the other things I really enjoyed is once you've done all of the elections, you then look at, when you win a district, your meeple will stay there and everyone else gets kicked out. the immigrant tokens stay there, but all the other meeples, even if you've placed in excess of one of your meeples, you'll still lose them. So it rebalances for the next round. But you look across the board and you have to count who's present with the most immigrant tokens of each of the different immigrant groups. So off the top of my head, there's the Germans, there's Italians, there's
English and Irish.
English and Irish, that's right. And if you're present, let's say, for example, with the most English tokens, you become the immigrant leader for that group. And you get 3 favor tokens to use for the next round. So it's important to win districts and get votes, but it's almost more important throughout the game to make sure you're positioning yourself to be those immigrant leaders, because getting those favor tokens is hard work.
Yes.
And
you spend them as well. Like, you spend them up.
You spend that's right. They go so quick, but you've done so much work to earn those favor tokens. I cannot speak highly enough of this game. It's not that easy to find, but just ask your local gaming store to see if they can source it. There are some copies available to purchase in the country, but man, this game is so good. I cannot wait to play it again. I've played it twice and I'm just frothing to play it again.
There was a couple other things as well that I thought were really cool. Thematically, like if you win the areas that have the docks, you get bonuses because of like imports and exports come through that district. So they are like some of the first ones that you actually have to sort of vie for. Yes, but it's really important to get those because you get these benefits of potentially like, I think one of them's like move a cube and one of them's get an extra token and some other little things. So you can actually, as the game's going around the table, you can then manipulate what's going to happen later in the game if you win certain districts and stuff early on those docklands, which I thought was really good. I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many, it's such a simple game to teach, but there's so much nuance and tight, moments in the game that really make that it's so palpable and just enjoyable. Oh,
it's like,
so
it's
good.
bus-like in a way, right? It's a game that's like under an hour, really. Like when you play it, use real cutthroat, backstabby, stealing things.
Yep.
I mean, like the bluffing bit was great because the amount of times I put my hand out and like if I had German and Irish immigrants, but I had those tokens as well. Everyone's like, oh, well, he's probably going to bid like because he can do this and that, and they all figure it out. And then you just put your hand in, you took all the German tokens off, then you just flip out with nothing, and you still win it. And they're like, oh, I should have gone for it because I would have beat him if I'd have gone for it. But I thought you would just go for it to stop me. And I was like, nah, I didn't do anything. That's so good.
Yeah, those mind games is partly why I enjoy it so much. Because with that blind bid, you 3, 2, 1 reveal at the same time. You spend the tokens whether you won or lost. And that's crippling and painful. And so you have those moments where you go, all right, I'm going to invest 4 tokens to try and get over the line, and the other person just reveals nothing. They're like, oh, I didn't need to spend all that. Oh,
I could have spent one and still won it. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really clever. Yeah. It's really fun. And it honestly, it's like the box art and stuff is, not like super, it doesn't scream what the game's about in a way. It's just a dude with a cigar and a top hat.
The board.
Yeah, the board's great. The board looks like an old map that was drawn in the 18th century, which is when the game is set. Like it's almost got that Letters of Whitechapel vibes, Dan, to a degree, like that oldie sort of style board.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Looking at some of the artwork before, it looks great.
That's my sizzle, Tammany Hall. I've thoroughly enjoyed it and highly recommend you go have a look for it.
All right, Adrian, well, you've already used up your allotted time for Horseless Carriage for your sizzle, so I'm going to skip to my sizzle. Now, Jules mentioned a Pandasaurus game. I've actually got a Pandasaurus game to sizzle as well, and this one came to us compliments of Pandasaurus, and it's a 2-player game, 2-player only game. It's a card game. I love my card games, and this one, it reminded me of Hanamakoji, which...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it reminded me of that. It gave me some of those vibes, and also maybe Fugitive as well, the Tim Fowers game where you're 2-player. But it has a distinct sort of gangster noir feel to it, and it's called District Noir. And what it is, it's just a simple card game. I think it's about 45 cards, and you're playing cards over a series of 4 rounds and then tallying up the scores at the end. Or there's an automatic win condition, which I'll get to in a moment. But the deck consists of a series of cards, and there are 5 cards with a 5 value. There are 6 with a 6 value, 7 with a 7, and 8 with an 8. There are also cards that have negative values. There's some that are -1, -2, -3. There's also cards that have positive, +1, +2, +3. And at the start of the game, you're dealt 5 cards. Both players are dealt 5 cards. The deck goes in the middle, and you start the middle of the field, if you like, with 2 cards off the top. So there'll always be 2 cards there. And on your turn, you do one of 2 actions. You can either play a card from your hand and add it to the sequence that's in the middle of the table, or you can collect 5 cards. Now, if there's less than 5 cards, because you go first, then you just take what's there. But you take 5 cards from the middle and put them in front of you, and that's what you'll be scoring on at the end of the game.
Right.
But you can only do that once per round. So you have 5 cards. In a round, you have 6 actions. 5 of those are to play something from your hand, and one of those is to take 5 from the middle. So when you take those 5, is super reliant on what's out there, what you don't want the other person to get, but you also don't want to go too early, because then if other good cards come out at the end of that round, you can't take them.
Yeah.
And so the other person is laying cards out knowing that they can take them. The other great thing is, because you're taking turns, when you do collect 5 cards on your turn, you're only collecting 2 that you've placed and 3 that they've placed. Because let's say Jules places a card, then I play one, then Jules, then me, then Jules, and then I go to collect on my turn. So what I'm essentially collecting is 3 cards that Jules has placed. So if I have a hand of 5 and they're all really good, I'm not going to be able to secure all 5 in my play space to count the end. So the order in which you play those 5 cards, the timing in which you collect those 5 cards and place them in front of you for scoring is really, really tight, really, really strategic. And then at the end, there will be at least 2 cards left, in which case you just deal 5 off the top for each of you. The person who went first last time goes second. The other person gets to go first. And then you go again, and you go over 4 rounds. Now, at the end, the cards you've got in front of you, whoever has the most 5 cards gets 5 points. So you need a majority. Whoever has the most 6 cards gets 6 points. But because there's an even number of 6 cards, because there's 6 of them,
you have to have
it may be a tie, in which case no one gets 6 points.
Okay, yep.
Whoever has the most 7s gets 7 points. Whoever has the most 8s gets 8 points. The cards that are positive and minus, they're just flat positive and minus.
Yep.
So they're really enticing. So what you could do is, if you see someone if your opponent is starting to collect 8s and they put an 8 out, you know they're going to collect it. So you might put a -3 next to it if you had it.
Because they really want the card.
So then they're going to have to cop the -3 as well.
Yeah, nice.
Now, what I didn't mention is there's also 3 city cards in there, and it's the police station, the docks, and City Hall. And those 3 cards, if you collect all 3 cards, so it's like you're controlling the city, the game stops and it's an automatic win. So that's another sort of spanner in the works, because if one person already has one of these city cards, and now you've got another one in your hand, how do you play it? Do you put it out there so that they can take it? Now they're two of the city cards out of 3 and potentially win. Do you wait until they've done their collect action and then put it out, so that then they can't take it, and then it's a moot point? And then the last wrinkle is, before the game starts, you've shuffled all the cards, you remove 3 from the game. So
nice.
You don't even know if the 3 city cards are all in play.
That's cool.
Potentially all 3 could be out.
Potentially. Right? Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Or you've collected the first one, you collected the second one, you're waiting for that third one to pop up, and it doesn't. And you've kind of sabotaged your game because you're anticipating this third one to come out.
It's a shoot for the moon sort of strategy. You go, I've ballsed up in the points here. I'm going for the city cards.
I'm going for the cities. But then if you on your turn, if you get dealt 2 city cards, how do you play them just so that you can secure both of them? Unless you start putting out some positive +3, +4 cards, put out the card the other person needs, so that once they do their collect 5 cards, then you can put out the ones that you want, and then they can't collect a second time.
Very clever.
So it is super, super clever. Now, I taught this to my mum today for Mother's
cool.
Day.
Nice.
And she's in her 70s. She picked it up like that. It was about 5 minutes to explain it. We played it 3 times. She won the second. I won the first game. She won the second game, and she actually got all 3 cities on the third game.
Oh, wow.
And schooled me. So
Nice.
but the
That's
games
good.
play really quick too. When you're playing 4 rounds, the game's over in 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and then it's like,
cool.
all right, shuffle up. Let's go again. This is really good. So for a really quick 2-player game, like I said, it does have that sort of Hannah Makoji sort of vibes. It's like, I've only got a couple of cards, but when you play them and how you play them, it's just really, really strategic. I highly recommend this. This is a really, really clever little card game for 2 players. So District Noir. And it's got a bit of the artwork has got a bit of a gangster feel to it. You've got the flat caps, like some of them are wearing Peaky Blinders, and and the girls have got those little sort of tiny little pistols, and it's the artwork's really, really clean, and just definitely check this one out, District Noir.
Nice.
I'll get to the table, and that's part of our library. So if you come to the Melbourne Game Day, you'll get a chance to play that as well. And with that, let's move to and recap last week's question of the pod.
Hey everyone, it's Sarah here. I want to talk a little bit about one of our sponsors who has sponsored the podcast from the very beginning, and that is Advent Games. Adventgames.com.au is an Australian board game store. This is the store where I get all of my games from, so you know that I'm not just advertising it just because. This is very personal to me. And Dean, who runs it, is very knowledgeable about games. He is a huge board gamer himself, and he often gives advice and things like that, and just awesome all-round customer service. So all around New South Wales, you can get flat rate shipping from adventgames.com.au for $10. If you're somewhere else in Australia, you can get flat rate shipping for $15, not that much more. And if you are super local, you can even see Dean at Chatswood on Tuesday nights to pick up games from him, from his very paws. So that is adventgames.com.au. Thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast.
All right, last week's question of the pod, I mentioned at the top of the show that we had a lot of contributions from our community for this one, and it was, what keeps you engaged in a board game? Now, Jules, I'm going to throw this one over to you because Adrian and I were both on last ep, but a personal question for you. What keeps you engaged in a board game?
I guess there's a couple of things. The first off the top of my head would be I like games where everyone's a chance to win. So you don't have that runaway leader, and there's no way to catch up, whether there's a catch-up mechanic or just by working with the other players, you can rein that leader back in. Look, there are definitely games where you can sort of sit back and go in the last 5-10 minutes, you go, okay, I don't think I can win this. That's not a big deal. But if you're an hour in, you got an hour to go, and you're like, I can't win this, that's when the engagement levels really drop off. For me as well, I think the key thing would be I like games where I can plan a few turns ahead, and I can morph that plan and synthesize it as the round comes back to me. And just always being able to sort of, plan ahead and think and strategize ahead is what keeps me engaged. There are definitely games where you have your turn and there is absolutely no point planning anything because the game state just totally changes by the time it comes back around.
Yeah.
It's hard to stay engaged when it's not your turn in those cases. Not to say they're bad games, but it's, if the turn comes around quick, doesn't matter. But I'm just giving loose terms here as to what keeps me engaged. It would definitely be, everyone's in with a shot to win, and you can plan and strategize ahead. Those would be the two things for me that keep me engaged.
I was thinking as well about this question because obviously I already answered it last week. But another thing that I definitely enjoy is stuff to do on my off turn.
Yes.
So Pipeline's a great example with the pipes. Like you get your pipes, okay, your turn, Jules. I'm going to move these around and keep me busy for the next 5 minutes. That stuff to do on your off turn is actually really important, and especially in like a heavier Euro-y type game because you really nothing to do with AP, but just talking rubbish amongst your friends while playing a heavy game, like it might not be your turn for almost 10 minutes. I haven't got a problem with that because I like talking rubbish with my friends.
I was just,
we do it for a living here on the podcast.
You sparked a thought in my head. I want a game, I don't know what the theme would be, but where you have your turn, and once you're done, there's almost like a mini game you need to do, whether it's shuffling resources around or doing conversions, while it's not your turn. And by the time it comes back around to you, you have to stop and you got to then work with what you got. It's almost like real time, but not quite, because players can sort of control how long their turns take. But if they take too long, you're giving all the other players lots of time to plan and prepare or do whatever that mini game is. That would be cool. There's not enough games that do stuff on your off turn, I feel.
Or the flip side is they sacrifice their turn in order to speed things up.
Yes.
To put you out.
Yes.
Yeah, it's clever.
Yes. Don't know what the game would be, but I want it.
No.
It could be a pachinko game because those pachinko machines have little mini games on them.
Yeah, right.
So maybe it could be that.
Yeah. Well, downtime is a big issue. That was always one of my issues with Codenames playing as a big group. When it's not your team's turn, there's a lot of downtime, and that was one of the things that sort of So Clover kind of fixed. And I haven't mentioned this on the show in terms of like just what we've been playing, but I've been playing a bit of Earth lately on BGA. And the thing I like about Earth is that when someone takes their major action, everyone at the table gets a minor action. And so it feels like there's less downtime because you're always doing something. Even though you're not the active player, you still get to do something on someone else's turn, and then you get to do something more significant on your turn. And plus you're also taking into consideration what action, when it is your turn, what action you're taking, because everyone else is going to get a knock-on action from that as well. So it's interesting you say that, Jules, because it came up on our Discord contributions. Less Lucid actually said fast turns and easy to read game state, and other players' actions being both legible and important to my situation. To put it the other way around, if I'm waiting a long time to take my turn, if what the other players are doing seems like it doesn't really affect me, or if I can't tell if their choices affect me, then the danger of becoming disengaged increases.
It's well put.
Yeah. Manny said, ultimately, that sense of having something that's unique or limited and hoping to God no one grabs it before your turn comes around, that for me is the ultimate engaging mechanism. It's more of a suspense. Sort of, don't take that one, don't take that one.
Clenching tension, don't take it.
Gene said, anything character progression or power up is good enemy AI beyond just the simple move and attack. Combat, conflict, dice rolling for outcomes, or puzzly card play a la Gloomhaven or Oathsworn. So pretty much anything I think Jim's up for. Jay said, I'm after that seeing the code in the Matrix feeling of dismantling a system, finding a cool combo or engine that surely no one's ever thought of before, and then slowly piecing it together and watching it come to life. You know, that feeling of, maybe if I do this, then I can do that, which will allow me to, I think what he's basically saying is combo tasticity.
Yeah, absolutely.
He needs to use the official barbecue word. It needs to be combo-tastic, Jay, is what you're saying. And Aquilo said, I'm a bit of a gaming omnivore, but really any game where either my turn comes around quickly, I can do meaningful planning in between turns, or I'm deeply involved in when others act. I don't really have a strong preference out of those three, though. So, really good contributions. Jules, did you manage to check out the Facebook?
So Dana said, lots of options and ways to score points. Point salad games keep me wanting more. I love it when I play a game and find myself continually thinking about it afterwards and how I could have done things differently. For me as well, the people I'm playing with are a huge influence. If you have a group of people who are enthusiastic and friendly, it makes all the difference. JB also said, the people I play with, the interactions, the banter, the great turns. Couldn't agree more with that. Brian Wilcutt said, losing, but feeling like victory may have just been within reach. That's a really good one. I really like that comment.
Yeah, nice.
I guess it ties up with everyone having a shot at winning. That's what I was sort of describing before. And Robert Jackson said, I love games that are progressive in the sense that the gameplay emerges and changes as you go on. Deck builders are a good example because your deck gets much more powerful. It's a good one. And I'll read one more from Ingrid. Said, games where I'm building towards a goal. It's so satisfying when it all falls into place and you get those sweet, sweet points. Well said.
Nice.
Sweet points.
We actually had a couple on Twitter as well.
Oh,
if I
great.
read those now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We had Luke J. Venables said, everyone having fun, which is, everyone having fun does keep you pretty well engaged. Like high society, if that was just bland, played like a real auction, it would be so awful.
Yeah.
But everyone going crazy and, throwing shade at each other and stuff makes that game. And we also had Drake Villarreal say, when the information horizon allows me to plan future actions 1 or 2 turns in advance. Any more than that feels overwhelming. Less than that feels like too chaotic and random. This is probably related to the flow state now that I think about it. And I'm definitely like Drake. I'm happy to plan 1 or 2 ahead. I can't plan more than that. I know, Jules, you probably can. But I just look at it and go, I'm just like, I'm happy that I'm doing this now and then next I'm doing that. And then maybe I'll do the next thing. But anything more than that, I'm like, now I'm lost. What was I doing? What was I doing first? But yeah, it's I can see how it can go.
I have to say, information horizon and flow state. I'm not sure how I feel about people who actually know what they're talking about contributing to this show. It just shows us up. Like I know we say we're addicts, not experts, but I've written that one down. I'm going to see if I can drop information horizon into my just drop into conversation. Thanks to everyone who's contributed to our question of the pod. We love reading everyone's responses, and it also generates a bit of a conversation on our Discord and on the Facebook and Twitter as well, which is what we love. And we will drop a new question of the pod at the end of the show. And when we're talking about the community, I just want to give a couple of shout outs to some of our Patreons: Paul Bradley, Sam Rayner, JT, Oliver Millen. Thank you so much for your patronage, for supporting the show. Like I said at the top of the show, we couldn't do it. We couldn't do what we do without the support of our Patreons. We've got a few things coming up. Jace, who's one of our Patreons, is going to be running another Jackbox Games at the end of the month. And I was going to plan a pub. I was going to plan a pub trivia quiz for the end of June, but Chris actually reached out to me today. He's another one of our Patreons going, hey, probably about time I did another Patreon pub quiz. So he's going to be doing one at the end of June, and I might wait and do mine a little bit later on, maybe September, October. So if you're not a Patreon already, you can go to patreon.com/Board Game BBQ, sign up, donate, and get access to exclusive podcast episodes. Def and Connor just did another exclusive Patreon podcast just this week. So that's on the app for all of our Patreons to listen to. I actually checked it out, and it's actually a really, really cool episode. But there are always plenty of ways to support the podcast without donating. You can definitely go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave a rating or a review for us. You can get involved in the Board Game BBQ community by joining our Facebook community, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. There's, of course, our Discord as well, where there's always conversations going on. And one thing that we always say is tell a friend. If you've got someone who you know who's into board games and they love their podcast, tell them about the Board Game BBQ podcast. Tell them to join the Discord and join in. We love sort of introducing new people to all our stupid shenanigans, but also our game days and our questions of the pod. So yeah, spread the word and get involved. All the links are in the show notes. And while we're talking about game days, the Melbourne game day is on June 17. And tickets are on sale now at Preston Town Hall. But the Sydney game day has also been announced, and it's on June 17 as well. So it's a super Saturday. It's the old rivalry. Jules has jumped the Murray. And
we'll see which one I turn up at. I won't say.
Yeah. So we're a bit more evenly distributed around the country now. So we've got Sarah, Mitch, and Jules up in Sydney, and then Mike, Connor, and myself down here in Melbourne. So it'll be a battle of the game days. You can get your tickets from Eventbrite, and if you're not already subscribed to Eventbrite, please just check us out, Board Game BBQ, and you can get updates and notifications of when our future events go on sale. And also last week, a big shout out to all the winners that we had of our. What are we calling it? We did a special community giveaway to celebrate.
Yeah, community giveaway.
Yeah, community giveaway. We did it. We were just celebrating 1,000 community members on our Discord and over 4,000 something on Facebook community. So we gave away
1,000 on YouTube as well.
Yeah,
all so we
gave away a bunch of prizes, and we'll be doing that. We're doing that more often as well. So another reason why to jump into the community and get involved. I think that's all the plugs we've got, fellas.
That should do enough.
Let's roll on to our final segment, Swear an Oath. Okay, now I didn't actually delve into the archives, Jules, so I don't know what your oath was from the last time we were on. Do you remember what it was?
I do remember what it was. So my oath was to go back into the solo mode of Cloud Spire.
Oh, okay. Is it still in a box?
It is now out of a box. Well, okay, to be fair, it was actually... The game was always in a box.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah. That's fair. You got me on technicality there.
I did. No, I had it with me in the car.
Playing while you're driving down the highway?
No.
The passenger seat?
I'm not that irresponsible. No, it was a matter of combination of, obviously, my priority has been finding a place to live, and another combination of the places I was staying at didn't have tables big enough to actually play the game on.
Yeah.
So that was really my main hurdle. And honestly, like, I'm still in that situation right now. We're just using a trestle table at the moment. So it might have been... Look, I had the time to play, but I literally did not have a surface to play on. I literally did not have a surface big enough to play on. So, look, I haven't done it, but I really do want to get back into it. I really do. I've done most of the content to date, but I still have 2 of the newest factions that I haven't completed their solo missions for. So that is still on the cards for sure.
Not that I get to pick what you choose, but I say leave it and try and get it done because you really like that game.
I love it.
If you add too much, it will be like a mission, whereas I think you'd actually really enjoy playing it again. So maybe your new oath should be buy a table.
I do need to buy... Yes. I literally do need to buy a table.
Or tidy your bloody house. You can find some floor space. Didn't you, from memory, paint the little towers as well that the chips go in?
So the towers I've got are not actually official product. They were
right.
They were designed by someone on Thingiverse and 3D printed. Mm-hmm. I'm not a massive fan, to be honest, of the official Cloud Spire towers. The miniatures, they look cool, but they're not as functional as these clean-looking towers. There's ones I've got, you can just see the chips better, and seeing the chips is important information in the game.
Yeah.
So, and you can fit way more under them as well than the official ones. So, yeah. Yes, I did paint them. It looks great on the table. And actually, that was one of the things. I forgot to pack the towers. So I would have been playing towerless. It would just be a stack of chips, which is how you play the base game. But come on, we need
boring.
Yeah, exactly right. So I don't really know. I need to buy a table. That's what I need to do.
I say make that your oath because that's great. Because Draven will probably put that on the file, and it'll be like Jules' oath, buy a table.
Furniture.
I literally do need to do that. Otherwise, I can only play small games on my trestle table.
Hey, it's as good an oath as any. If it contributes to your board gaming hobby, then I say
it'll very much so contribute.
Hobby is to buy a table.
That'll be brilliant. I'm going to make mine to finish my garden edging.
Yeah,
that's fine.
So there's something to look at while you're playing board games.
Yeah.
Now yours was, we've already covered yours because your oath last week was to play Horseless Carriage. Am I right?
It was, yeah. That was my oath last week, and the reason why I made it that is because I knew it was going to happen, so I wasn't going to fail. So that was good. That was a plus for me because I usually fail. But my next oath, man, I am so busy at the moment, garden edging and all. But I actually got sent a game from somebody that I didn't expect. I thought it was something else. So I don't know who knows this or who doesn't know this, but I've actually been coaching Finn's soccer team, which is crazy because I don't even know the rules to soccer.
Yeah.
And
pick up the ball with your hands and run, kids.
Yeah, pretty much was like, if Finn's mum didn't do it, then there would have been no team, and those kids wouldn't have had a place to play because there was too many kids in other teams. Right. So they had to make another team. Anyway,
This is like the start of a Disney movie. I can feel it.
It's like Monsters Inc.
I was thinking more along the lines
you
of
think
Mighty
I don't know
Ducks, but-
sports. You think I don't know sports. Finn's mum has less knowledge than I do, so it's, she's doing it for the kids, and that's really admirable. And for some reason, she put my name down as well as the coach to help. So without asking, of course. So now I am second coach. So it's great. And I've learned a lot about soccer and drills and stuff, and it's been really fun. And you know what? I actually got really into it, embarrassingly into it. Like,
oh, really?
Yelling at the side of the pitch and stuff, and getting kids all hyped up and excited, and, doing the oranges and stuff at halftime and all that. And it's been really fun. So,
have you got like codes? Like, right, I want you to go around the wing and do a barrage. You in front of goal. I want you to pipeline the goalie, and then I want you to go over here and just horseless carriage it all the way down the
To be honest, they all call me Finn's dad. Okay. Finn's dad. They call Finn's mum coach. Anyway, back to the story. You've left me. I was like, crap. Where did I start? What was I even talking about? I know what I was talking about. I got sent a box in the post, and it was in a shoebox. I didn't know who sent it. But Mitch sent me a message, said, "Did you get that parcel?" Because he obviously got a notification saying it was on my doorstep, and it was like a shoebox. So I thought he'd sent me like some soccer shoes or something that he had got or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I opened it, and there was a copy of the Rat Catcher in there.
Oh,
and because I spoke about it on the live show, saying how much I admired Matt Aslan for releasing a solo-only game and using his own art and his own design and everything, Mitch actually sent me that to have. So that was really kind of him. So I feel bad about mocking him at the start of the show now. Come back to bite me in the ass. So, he'll get over it pretty quick. But yeah, I've got a copy of the Rat Catcher, and with everyone being so busy, at least I can hopefully rely on myself to get it played. So
get some of that magical cheese.
Adrian Smith swear to play the Rat Catcher.
Nice.
Next time on the show. Yeah, and it's a theme that I really like, and I love the design and the look of it. So yeah, cool.
Excellent. Well, my oath was to play Fallen Angels, which is the small box game from Side Room Games, because I picked up for Northwood from their latest Kickstarter campaign, also grabbed Orchard and this one, and it really enticed me because it was a deduction game, but also that all of the artwork are gangsters and mobsters and sort of deviants from 1920s Sydney, so that every card looks like a mugshot. It's fantastic. But I got a chance to play this one today with my mum, and it is super clever. I was really, really impressed. Hey, Adrian's got one too. He's just holding it up. I read the rules and I was okay, I'm not quite sure how this works. And then I watched a playthrough online and went, oh, I get it. And playing it in the flesh, it is incredibly clever. So every single card has I think there's 7 or 8 different icons. One is for fingerprints, there's a confession, there's basically forms of evidence that would be at a scene of a crime, and you're trying to convict these criminals by way of showing your opponent a clue, and then they're showing the back of your card to your not opponent, your co-conspirator, your other player, and then giving you clues so that you can deduce what evidence you need to actually just announce to convict. So I'm doing a really bad job of explaining this, but the card itself will have 2 icons in the top left. So you might be able to see a fingerprint and, say, a weapon, but the back of the card will only show one of those. So you don't know which one it's going to be. And it's kind of like Hanabi style, where you just lift up the card slightly so that your person sitting opposite you can see 1 or 2 icons that they're going to give you clues on. And then they fan their cards out without rearranging. They fan their cards according to a yes or a no card, which they have in the middle of theirs. And so they will put symbols on the yes side or a no side to try and let you know what the symbol is on the back of yours. But they're in the same situation. They actually, if they can see 2 symbols on their card, then only 1 is on the back. Or if they can see 1 on their card, there 2 are on the back. So the information isn't perfect that they're giving you. There's a bit of guesswork and a bit of deduction. It's essentially a deduction game. The more the more success you have, you actually removing those cards from the game, you need 12 convictions to win. But then, of course, the less cards you have in your hand, the less information, the less clues you're allowed you have to give the other person. So it starts to get more difficult. It's just really, really clever the way it's balanced. Also, when you start off, because you've got there's almost like 3 different stages of each card. So there's level 3, level 2, and then level 1. Once you guess the level 1 state, that's when you can convict them and put them behind bars. So when you start on a level 3, you can see 2 icons. There's only 1 icon at the back. So then it's easier for them to give you clues and you can narrow it down. But when it gets to the final stage, right before conviction, you can only see 1 and the other person can see 2 to give you clues. So they don't know what you can see. You're trying to work together to give each other clues using the iconography. And I was amazed at how well it actually works just for a deck of cards with some clues on it. So this is another a big hit for me from Side Room Games. I've just been really happy with some of the stuff they've been putting out in their catalog, and it makes me want to sort of dive back in and see what other games they've published that I'm not aware of, and just have a crack at. So that's another tick. I think we've got almost 3 ticks, 2.5 ticks for our oaths this week. My new oath, I had another Kickstarter arrive this week, and I know there's already been a bit of a chat in our community about it, and it's Legacy of You.
Oh, yes.
Another solo game. I love me some solo games, love me some Garfield games as well. So Dan Harris, swear by the next time I'm on the pod, I'll have played Legacy of You and get to that table, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. The game looks beautiful. So, alrighty. Only thing left to do is another question of the pod for next week. And we were just talking during the break. We've just, by pure coincidence, we sizzled 2 Pandasaurus games, and Adrian was talking about some Splotter games, which got me thinking. Sometimes with our gaming styles, we kind of gravitate towards certain publishers in the way, like I was saying, I want to go back and check in some Side Room Games. So our question of the pod for this week is, who is your favorite publisher and why? It might be the style of game they put out. It might be the theme. It might be that it just everything they put out just really hits that sweet spot and appeals to you. Jules, do you have any particular publisher that you really gravitate towards?
Yeah, so I actually, for this question, I went and had a look at my top 10 because I wanted to give a technical answer as well as, I guess, an answer from the heart, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if I was to look at my top, actually look at my top 20, the first, basically what I was looking at was what is the first repetition of a publisher in my top 20? And when I look at it, the first repetition I would get would technically mean Whirligig Games is my favorite publisher.
Okay.
Because I've got Pax Pamir at number 3 and then John Company at number 12. And I have other repetitions in that top 20. So I've got 2 Simon games in the top 20 because I've got Ankh Gods of Egypt and Blood Rage. I've also got Leader Games, which has Root and Oath.
Yeah.
So but that technically is the first repetition that happens in my top 10. And why that would be the case when I think about it is both of those games, the one thing they have in common is that the board state changes drastically over the course of a single turn. I love how fluid and how much that game can change in a single moment. A single card play, a single decision can literally open wide the game state and change it into a totally different direction. And I love that about it, that it's almost like everyone knows there's that potential in both of those games. And you've always got to be aware of it. And you need to be ready to pivot or do something else to adjust with that. Yeah, exactly. So Whirligig Games, obviously I love Cole Whirly and all of the work he does. So there's no surprises there. But when I think about what would be my favorite publisher, it's really hard. At the moment, my mind, I haven't painted for a while. I've been really craving to do some mini painting. And I love the miniatures in Kingdom Death. That I've said it before, it's like the perfect hybrid of board game and miniature painting for me, and that I love everything that Adam Poots puts out for that game. There's so much to it. There's so many miniatures, and that's I guess primarily what I love about him as an independent publisher of that game is the miniatures and how evocative those are.
Yeah, that's a great one. I know there was an announcement during the week from Fantasy Flight Games. There's a new Star Wars game coming out next year, so I'm sure there's a lot of fans of Fantasy Flight Games that have got Arkham Horror and Lord of the Rings and Marvel Champions. They're all going, yep, my publisher's bringing out Star Wars games.
I think it's Star Wars Unlimited.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah, so it's a new collectible card game. It's not even a living card game. This is collectible cards.
Yeah,
like Magic the
Gathering. That's why in the Discord I just went, ha ha. I was like, you guys are going to have so much money dumped in this thing.
Yeah.
I'm not touching it. No way.
And I'm gonna quickly throw one out before we get to Adrian, because there's a Kickstarter out that's only got a few more days to go, with a bunch of trick-taking games from board game tables.
Well, now it's all play.
Right, yeah. But for me, I've got so many games in their collection, like Loot of Lima, Bites, Factory Funner. You mentioned the 12 Days of Christmas. They did that with the Bear Raid.
Bear Raid, yep.
What else have I got from
That's
there?
a Ryan Courtney game.
Yes. So I'm a big fan of those. Anything that they bring out, I will always have a look at and go, oh,
they're real solid, aren't they?
They're just the componentry, the gameplay. They don't sort of aim too high. They're usually like a light or but really complex light. I think it's something like Bites, where it's just easy to learn, but just super, super strategic. And Loot of Lima has a real soft spot in my heart because I love that game. So that's definitely one of my favorite publishers, just because of the componentry and some of the stuff that they do. It's just really, really clever. Adrian, I've given you enough time. I can see you're still eyeballing your collection.
I've got no idea.
outside of Splotter, I know you always speak highly of those. Is there another publisher that you just really, really love?
No. I did the Jules thing, and it's like it's Eagle Griffin Games if I do the Jules way, because two of them are in my top 10.
Yes.
And, I do love all those games, but I think that, I don't know, like I try to sort of think of something different and I kind of come back to them in a weird way.
Yeah.
But they aren't super diverse. They are usually quite heavy Euro games. Like even Rococo isn't like super heavy, but there's definitely, they've got that. And they always have that high production quality, right? It's very similar production quality as well. And they're always very high. But I also do really like Cranio. They have a lot of good stuff and they're always quite different. Yep. I quite like their stuff's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think to be honest, it probably is just Eagle Griffin Games, just because of that high quality, ease to set up, good rule books. They kind of have the whole package, so.
The other one I want to shout out would be Orange Nebula. Like their game titles are so unique, but also just who they are as individuals. Their publishing, company. All of those people are so interesting to listen to. I love their own podcasts as well, and they're just great to chat to. I just love the work they put out, but as well as just love them as people. They're fantastic. I really, really love all the work that Orange Nebula does.
Yeah, it's great.
Also, Board and Dice, they're pretty solid. Tabanusi, Tekenu.
If you're going to throw another one in there, then I'm going to say Scorpion Mask, because I've got a lot of their games especially the games that I've played with the boys, the Zombie Teens ones, and some of their party style games. Really, really love them. But
Facade Games.
Yeah.
Facade Games, yes.
Facade. We don't have a can of words, but
we just like all of them.
Of course to do. And we want to hear what the community loves as well. And I think this is the kind of question where everyone will be able to read each other's answers as well, and maybe discover. So I'd love to hear about some new publishers that we haven't heard of before, or maybe some ones that are really, really small and indie. And this is a way that we can sort of discover new publishers, discover new games. So make sure you head up our socials. You'll see that question of the pod on our Discord and Twitter and Facebook, and occasionally put on our Instagram as well. So get involved in the conversation. We'd love to
It's
hear.
definitely the why as well. The why.
Yeah,
is
but
the
definitely the
interesting
why.
part.
Yeah. We don't want to why because you worked for them. We want to know why. What is it about that publisher that you really, really love? So, and that brings us to the end of the show, fellas. Yeah, been a good one. Thanks very much for hanging out on the Sunday night, Adrian, Jules.
It's been a pleasure. It's good to be back
It's
on
been
board.
great.
Yeah.
It's good.
Oh, and it'd be remiss of me to not to say as well, it's tonight as we're recording, it's Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day, or happy belated Mother's Day to all the mums out there. Hope you got sport. Hope you got some board games. Hope you played some board games. And until next time, play more games.
Bye.
Bye.
Did I say that? Did I intro it cleanly enough?
Yeah, it's good. That'll be
Yeah?
fine. Yeah,
I'll just give you too much work. All right.
that's okay. I did myself work.
No, I